when a young girl let a police dog into her backyard, what he dug up left her parents absolutely terrified. 10-year-old Lily never imagined the horror that would follow her innocent act of curiosity. The trained German Shepherd wasn't there to play. He was searching for evidence. And in just minutes, his powerful sense of smell detected something buried beneath their perfect suburban lawn. What Rex dug up that afternoon didn't just shock the officers. It left Lily's parents paralyzed with fear. Their picture-perfect life was about to shatter into pieces. The Richardson family had everything they could ever want: a beautiful home in Oakwood Estates, successful careers, and their bright-eyed daughter Lily, who filled their lives with joy. Their backyard barbecues and pristine garden were the envy of the neighborhood. Life couldn't have been more perfect. But perfection has a way of cracking when you least expect it. On a crisp Saturday morning, the quiet suburban street erupted with activity as 3 police cruisers and a K-9 unit parked at the entrance to their cul-de-sac. Officers began canvassing the area, knocking on doors and asking questions about a cold case that had suddenly heated up. "We have reason to believe evidence related to the disappearance of Megan Winters might be located in this vicinity," the lead detective explained to concerned neighbors. Megan had vanished 5 years ago, long before most current residents had moved in. But now, new information had brought investigators back to Oakwood Estates. Lily watched from her bedroom window, completely captivated by the magnificent German Shepherd that moved with purpose alongside his handler. The dog's alert posture and intelligent eyes made her heart race with excitement. While her parents whispered nervously in the kitchen, Lily couldn't take her eyes off Rex, the K-9 officer who was methodically searching the perimeter of each property. Little did Lily know that her innocent fascination with Rex would unearth a nightmare her parents had desperately tried to escape. "Absolutely not, Lily. Stay away from those officers, and especially that dog." Her father's voice was unusually stern as he closed the blinds with a sharp snap. "This has nothing to do with us, and I want it to stay that way." Lily had never seen her parents so agitated. Her mother paced the kitchen, checking her watch repeatedly as if willing time to move faster. Her father kept peering through the blinds, his jaw clenched tight. The tension in the house was thick enough to cut with a knife, a stark contrast to their normally peaceful Saturday mornings filled with pancakes and laughter. "But Dad, Rex is so cool. I just want to see what he's trained to do," Lily protested, her 10-year-old curiosity impossible to contain. She'd been obsessed with animals since she could walk, filling countless notebooks with drawings and facts about everything from household pets to exotic wildlife. A real working police dog was the most exciting thing to happen in their neighborhood in forever. "His name is not Rex, and he's not a pet," her mother snapped, setting down her coffee mug with enough force to splash liquid onto the pristine countertop, something she'd never normally do. "He's a working police dog, and they're investigating something serious. Promise me you'll stay inside today." Her mother's perfectly manicured nails drummed anxiously against the granite as she wiped up the spill, her wedding ring catching the morning light. Lily noticed a slight tremor in her hands. "Your mother's right," her father added, his voice softening slightly when he saw Lily's crestfallen expression. "Those dogs are trained to find things that aren't meant to be found. They're not like the golden retrievers at the park." He ran his fingers through his salt and pepper hair, a nervous habit he'd developed recently. "Just stay inside and work on your science project. Didn't you say it was due Monday?" Lily nodded reluctantly, but the seed had already been planted in her mind. Throughout the day, she watched from various windows as Rex and his handler methodically worked their way down the street. The dog moved with such purpose, such confidence. Nose to the ground, then suddenly alert, communicating with subtle signals to the officer who seemed to understand his every movement. When they took a break and the handler gave Rex a reward, Lily could see the special bond between them. The officer spoke quietly to the dog, scratching behind his ears with obvious affection. It wasn't all business. They were partners, friends even. Lily pressed her forehead against the cool glass of her bedroom window, imagining what it would be like to have that kind of connection with an animal so intelligent and brave. She noticed other peculiar things too. Mrs. Abernathy from 3 doors down brought the officers lemonade, but her parents refused to even acknowledge the police presence. When the doorbell rang around noon, her father practically jumped out of his skin before answering with a strained smile, only to quickly dismiss the officers' questions about the neighborhood 5 years ago. "We only moved here 2 years ago," he'd said curtly. "We can't help you with anything from before that." He closed the door before the officer could respond, then immediately called Lily's mother, whispering urgently into the phone. By afternoon, her parents seemed to relax slightly when the police activity moved to the far end of the neighborhood. Her mother disappeared into her home office for an important call, while her father went to the garage to work on his weekend project, the vintage motorcycle he'd been restoring for months, but seemed to make little progress on. The house fell quiet, except for the distant hum of her father's tools and her mother's muffled business voice. Lily set aside her half-finished science project. A diorama of the solar system that couldn't hold her interest today crept to her window once more. The police dog and his handler had returned, now examining the vacant lot between the Davidson and Miller houses. That's when Lily saw her opportunity. She slipped out the back door, wincing as it creaked slightly, and crept along the side of the house where the hydrangeas her mother had planted last spring provided perfect cover. Her heart hammered in her chest. She'd never deliberately disobeyed her parents like this before. But something about their behavior today felt wrong, almost scary. Peering around the corner, she spotted Rex resting in the shade of the maple tree while his handler interviewed a neighbor across the street. The German shepherd's ears perked up immediately, sensing her presence before she'd made a sound. His intelligent amber eyes locked onto hers, alert but not aggressive. "Hi, Rex," she whispered, holding out her hand the way she'd seen people do with dogs on TV. To her surprise, the police dog didn't bark or alert his handler. Instead, he tilted his head curiously, studying the small human who knew his name. His tail gave a single, tentative wag. Emboldened, Lily took a step closer. The dog's official canine vest looked important and professional, with patches and insignia she couldn't read from this distance. His fur was sleek and well-groomed, nothing like the shaggy golden retriever her best friend Emma owned. "Want to see my backyard? I have a really cool treehouse," she whispered, pointing toward the wooden structure her father had built last summer. "And my mom planted these flowers that smell amazing. Maybe you can smell things I can't even imagine." As if understanding her invitation, Rex glanced at his distracted handler, then back at Lily. The officer was deep in conversation with old Mr. Peterson, who talked so slowly that the interview would likely take forever. The girl's heart raced as she slowly backed toward her yard. And to her amazement, the highly trained police dog followed, his interest piqued by this unexpected break in routine. Lily couldn't believe her luck as she led Rex through the gate into their backyard paradise. Her father had spent thousands on professional landscaping last fall, something her mother had insisted on after they'd moved in. The perfectly manicured lawn rolled out like a green carpet, bordered by flowering shrubs and ornamental trees. The centerpiece was a bubbling stone fountain that her mother claimed helped her meditate, though Lily had never actually seen her do so. "This is where I have my birthday parties," Lily explained to Rex in a hushed voice, gesturing to the patio with its expensive outdoor furniture. "And over there is where Dad buries." She stopped mid-sentence as Rex suddenly stiffened. His entire demeanor changed in an instant. Head lowered, body tense, tail straight. He was no longer the curious dog following a friendly girl. He had transformed into the working police K9 her parents had warned her about. Without warning, Rex trotted purposefully toward the far corner of the yard, where her mother's prized rose bushes created a fragrant border between their property and the neighbors. He began to sniff intently at a patch of ground that looked no different than any other part of the lawn to Lily's untrained eye. Then he started to dig, powerful paws displacing earth with frightening efficiency. "No, Rex, stop!" Lily hissed, panic rising in her chest. Her mother would be furious about the damage to her perfect lawn. "You can't dig here." But the German Shepherd was in work mode now, completely focused on his task. Dirt flew as his training took over, and within moments, he had created a sizable hole in the previously immaculate yard. That's when Lily saw it. Something pale and unmistakable emerging from the freshly disturbed earth. Something that made her stomach lurch and her vision swim. But what started as an innocent game was about to reveal the dark secret hiding just inches beneath their perfectly manicured lawn. A secret her parents had gone to extraordinary lengths to keep buried, in more ways than one. Lily's scream died in her throat as she stared at the object Rex had uncovered. Nestled in the dark soil was something white and curved, unmistakably bone-like. Her mind raced with terrifying possibilities as Rex continued to dig with increased intensity, his training kicking into high gear. The dog's behavior confirmed what Lily's racing heart already suspected. This was no buried pet or animal remains. "Rex, please stop," she whispered. But her plea fell on deaf ears. The German Shepherd was doing exactly what he had been trained to do: find what others had tried to hide. The afternoon sun cast long shadows across the yard as Rex worked, his powerful paws displacing earth with methodical precision. Each movement revealed more of whatever lay beneath the pristine lawn. A lawn her father had insisted on resodding himself last spring, working late into the night for nearly a week. He'd been so particular about that corner near the roses, telling Lily it was off limits until the new grass took root properly. As more dirt flew from the hole, Lily heard the back door slam open with such force that the decorative wreath her mother had hung there went tumbling to the ground. Her father's voice, usually so controlled and measured, came out as a strangled cry that barely resembled human speech. "Lily, get away from there." She turned to see her parents frozen on the patio, their faces drained of all color. Her mother's hand flew to her mouth, stifling a scream that seemed to come from somewhere primal and desperate. Her father looked like he might collapse, his knuckles white as he gripped the door frame for support. In that moment, they were unrecognizable. These weren't the poised, confident professionals who hosted dinner parties and attended parent-teacher conferences with practiced smiles. "Dad, Rex found something," Lily said, her voice small and trembling. "I think it's—" "Get in the house now!" Her father's command was so forceful that Lily stumbled backward. She'd never heard him use that tone before, raw with panic and something else she couldn't identify. Fear, rage, both? His eyes darted frantically between Lily, Rex, and the growing hole in their perfect lawn. Her mother took a halting step forward, then seemed to think better of it, rooted in place as if crossing the threshold would make this nightmare real. "Thomas," she whispered to her husband, "what do we do?" The question hung in the air, heavy with implications Lily couldn't fully grasp but instinctively feared. Rex's handler appeared at the side gate, alerted by the commotion. He assessed the situation in seconds, his trained eyes taking in the digging dog, the exposed white object in the soil, and the panicked homeowners. "Sir, step away from my K-9 officer," he called out, his hand moving instinctively toward his weapon. "Ma'am, please take your daughter inside while we secure this area." But Lily's mother seemed incapable of movement, her eyes fixed on the disturbed earth as if in a trance. "This isn't happening," she whispered. "This can't be happening. We were so careful." The last words were barely audible, but they sent a chill through Lily that had nothing to do with the afternoon breeze. More officers flooded into the yard, responding to a signal from Rex's handler. The peaceful Saturday afternoon erupted into controlled chaos as yellow crime scene tape appeared, sectioning off the rose garden from the rest of the property. Radios crackled with coded messages Lily couldn't understand, but the gravity in the officers' voices told her everything she needed to know. Her father finally moved, taking 3 unsteady steps toward Rex before an officer intercepted him. "Sir, I need you to stay back." "This is my property," her father protested, but his voice lacked conviction. "You can't just—" "We have probable cause, Mr. Richardson," the officer replied firmly, "and a valid warrant for this search." "Warrant?" Her father's face contorted in confusion. "But you were just doing a neighborhood canvass about that missing girl. You said nothing about—" "The warrant was expedited when our K-9 unit alerted to human remains," the officer interrupted, his words falling like stones into the stunned silence. Human remains. The words echoed in Lily's mind as she tried to process their meaning. Not animal bones, not an old time capsule, not a forgotten garden ornament. Human remains. Through it all, Lily stood rooted to the spot, unable to process the rapid transformation of her perfect home into what looked like a scene from the crime shows her parents never let her watch. An officer with kind eyes and gray at her temples gently guided Lily toward the house, her voice soft but firm. "Sweetie, you need to go inside now. We need to talk to your parents." "But what did Rex find?" Lily asked, unable to tear her eyes away from the growing excavation where 3 officers now worked methodically, documenting and photographing whatever lay in that dark hole. The officer exchanged a glance with a colleague before answering carefully. "We're not sure yet. That's why we need to investigate." But Lily knew it was a lie. The grim expressions, the urgent radio calls, the way her parents seemed to have aged years in minutes. Everyone knew exactly what Rex had found. "Is it Megan Winters?" Lily asked suddenly, remembering the name from earlier that morning. "The girl who disappeared?" The officer's momentary surprise confirmed Lily's suspicion before she could mask it with professional neutrality. "We don't know anything for certain yet," she said, guiding Lily firmly toward the house. "That's why we need to be very thorough and careful." As they passed her parents, Lily noticed something that sent another wave of confusion and fear through her. Her mother and father stood several feet apart, not touching, not looking at each other. In moments of crisis, like when Lily had fallen from her bike and needed stitches, or when a storm had knocked out power for 3 days, her parents had always been a united front, drawing strength from each other. Now they seemed like strangers, separated by something more substantial than the physical space between them. Inside the house, the atmosphere was suffocating. Her parents sat at opposite ends of the sofa, not touching, not speaking, as detectives asked questions in low, serious voices. Lily was relegated to the kitchen with the female officer, who tried to distract her with questions about school and friends. "Do you like science class, Lily? I always loved biology when I was your age. But Lily could still hear fragments of the conversation from the living room, each word adding to the growing knot of dread in her stomach. Moved here, how long ago? Previous owners of the property need to know your whereabouts on June 12th, 5 years ago. Interesting that you changed your names legally just before relocating. The questions continued for hours as the sky darkened outside. Through the kitchen window, Lily could see powerful lights illuminating the backyard, where the excavation continued well into the night. More official vehicles arrived. Vans with logos she didn't recognize. People in white protective suits carrying equipment that looked both scientific and ominous. The kitchen clock ticked loudly, marking each second of this new reality. Lily picked at the sandwich the officer had made her, unable to eat despite not having had lunch. Her mind kept returning to small details that had never seemed important before. The way her father had insisted on installing the security system himself, despite having no technical background. The locked filing cabinet in her mother's office that Lily was never, ever allowed to touch. The shouting match she'd overheard 6 months ago when her mother had yelled, "They'll never connect us to Denver if you just stay calm." When the female officer stepped away to take a call, Lily crept to the hallway where she could better hear her parents' interrogation. The living room lights cast long shadows down the corridor, and Lily pressed herself against the wall, becoming one with the darkness. Her father's voice was hoarse but composed. "This is a mistake. We bought this house 2 years ago. Whatever you found has nothing to do with us." "Mr. Richardson." The detective's voice was neutral but persistent. "Property records show you purchased this house through a shell company before transferring it to your name. That's an unusual way to buy a family home." "I work in real estate development. It's not unusual in my business." "And your previous residence in Colorado? The one that mysteriously burned down shortly before you moved here?" A heavy silence followed, broken only by the sound of her mother's quiet sobbing. "We're going to need DNA samples from both of you," another detective said, "to eliminate you from our investigation." Her mother's voice, barely audible. "Do we need a lawyer?" The response was immediate. "That's entirely your right, Mrs. Richardson, but it might make us wonder why you feel you need one." "We're not stupid," her father snapped, a hint of his normal confidence returning. "I've watched enough TV to know how this works. You try to trick us into saying something incriminating, then twist our words. No one is trying to trick you, Mr. Richardson. We're investigating human remains found on your property. Standard procedure. Those remains could have been there for decades, long before we moved in. Preliminary examination suggests otherwise," the detective replied coolly. "The ME estimates time of death at approximately 4 to 5 years ago, based on decomposition and soil conditions." Another silence, heavier than the first. "I want to call our lawyer," her father finally said. "By all means." Lily heard movement, then her father's voice again, this time with an edge of panic. "My phone? Where's my phone?" "It's been temporarily secured as potential evidence, along with your wife's phone and all computers in the house," the detective explained. "Standard procedure in a case like this. You can use our phone to call your attorney." Lily's stomach twisted into knots. These weren't the parents she knew, the ones who helped with homework, who cheered at her soccer games, who kissed her goodnight every evening. These were strangers with her parents' faces, hiding secrets so terrible they had to be buried beneath roses. A gentle hand on her shoulder made her jump. The female officer had returned, her expression sympathetic but firm. You shouldn't be listening to this, Lily. Come back to the kitchen. Those are my parents, Lily said, her voice breaking. I need to know what's happening. The officer knelt down to meet her eyes. In the dim hallway light, Lily could see the woman's name tag, Officer Ramirez. I know this is scary and confusing, but right now, the best thing you can do is let us do our job. What did Rex find? Lily demanded, tears finally spilling over. Please tell me. I'm not a baby. Officer Ramirez hesitated, choosing her words carefully. Rex is trained to find certain things. Sometimes it's drugs or weapons, but Rex has special training to find. People who have been missing for a long time. The implication hung in the air between them. Lily thought of Megan Winters, the name she'd heard the officers mention earlier. A girl who disappeared 5 years ago. A girl whose school photo had flashed briefly on the local news last week during a segment about cold cases. Pretty, with long dark hair not unlike Lily's own. My parents wouldn't hurt anyone, Lily whispered. But even as the words left her mouth, doubt crept in like a shadow. The hushed conversations she wasn't meant to hear. The midnight phone calls. The way they'd changed their names when they moved. A fresh start, they'd called it. The way her father had taught her never to let anyone take her picture, not even for school yearbooks. The way her mother obsessively checked the locks 3 times every night. The strange room in the basement that was always locked, that her father claimed was just for storage. Officer Ramirez squeezed her shoulder gently. Let's go back to the kitchen. I think there's some ice cream in your freezer. Would that help? Lily nodded numbly, allowing herself to be led away from the living room where her parents' lives, and by extension, her own, were being dismantled question by question. In the kitchen, Officer Ramirez scooped vanilla ice cream into a bowl, adding chocolate syrup in a swirl pattern. My daughter loves ice cream when she's upset, she said, sliding the bowl toward Lily. She's a little younger than you. Just turned 8 last month. Lily poked at the ice cream with her spoon. Does she know what you do? That you find bad people? Officer Ramirez's smile was sad. She knows I help people who are in trouble. That's the most important part of my job. Even if the people in trouble did bad things. Everyone deserves to be treated with dignity, Lily. Even people who've made terrible mistakes. Is that what my parents did? Make a mistake? Officer Ramirez didn't answer directly. Right now, we're just gathering information. That's all I can tell you. The night stretched on endlessly. Lily was eventually shown to her bedroom, though Officer Ramirez stayed with her just to keep her company. Lily knew it was really to make sure she didn't try to speak with her parents again or interfere with the investigation continuing in her backyard. From her bedroom window, she could see the floodlights illuminating the scene. More earth had been removed, and a white tent now covered the excavation site. People in paper suits moved in and out of the tent, carrying equipment and evidence bags. You should try to get some sleep, Officer Ramirez suggested, but they both knew it was impossible. Around midnight, Lily heard raised voices from downstairs. Her father, angry and desperate, and another male voice she didn't recognize. That's probably your parents' lawyer, Officer Ramirez explained. He's doing his job, just like we're doing ours. What happens next? Lily asked, hugging her knees to her chest as she sat on her bed, still fully dressed. What happens to me? The question seemed to catch Officer Ramirez off guard. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. There's still a lot we don't know. But there was something in her eyes. Pity, concern, uncertainty, that told Lily everything she needed to know. Whatever came next would bear no resemblance to the life she had known. As dawn broke over their once perfect home, the truth emerged from the earth in the form of human remains. And with it came the realization that the monsters Lily had feared under her bed had been tucking her in every night, telling her they loved her with the same hands that had buried secrets beneath beautiful roses, hoping they would never bloom. The morning light revealed new vehicles in front of their house, a van from the medical examiner's office and several unmarked cars. Lily watched from her window as two officers led her father to a police car in handcuffs. His head bowed, shoulders slumped in defeat. Her mother followed minutes later with a different officer, her face blank with shock, still wearing the same clothes from yesterday. Neither of them looked up at Lily's window. A soft knock at her bedroom door announced the arrival of a woman Lily hadn't seen before. She wore plain clothes instead of a uniform and carried a folder under her arm. "Hello, Lily. My name is Ms. Bennett from Child Protective Services. I'm here to help figure out what happens next for you." Lily stared at her, this stranger who now held the keys to her future. "Did they find Megan Winters in our yard?" Ms. Bennett's professional composure faltered slightly. "I'm not at liberty to discuss the details of the investigation, but yes, they believe they have found Megan." "And my parents, did they?" "The police have enough evidence to hold them for questioning," Ms. Bennett said carefully. "Beyond that, I don't know much more than you do." But Lily knew. In her heart, she had known from the moment Rex began to dig. The perfect family and the perfect house with their perfect lawn had been built on a foundation of lies and secrets and bones. "What happens to me now?" Lily asked again, her voice small but steady. "For now, you'll come with me. We'll find a safe place for you to stay while everything gets sorted out." "Will I ever come back here?" Ms. Bennett's hesitation was answer enough. "Why don't you pack some things you'll need for a few days? Clothes, toiletries, maybe a favorite book or stuffed animal." Lily moved mechanically around her room, filling her school backpack with random items, a toothbrush, some t-shirts, the dog-eared copy of The Secret Garden her father had given her for her last birthday. The irony of the title wasn't lost on her, even at 10 years old. As she zipped the backpack closed, a final question formed in her mind, one that would haunt her for years to come. "Ms. Bennett, if my parents did what everyone thinks they did, what does that make me?" The woman crossed the room and knelt before Lily, taking her small hands in her own. "It makes you Lily, just Lily. Not your parents' actions, not their choices. You are your own person, and none of this is your fault." But as Lily took one last look at her bedroom, the star stickers on the ceiling her father had helped her place, just like the real constellations, the bookshelf her mother had painted to match her bedspread, the family photos that now seemed like scenes from a movie about strangers. She wondered if that could ever truly be possible. How do you separate yourself from the people who made you? How do you build a new identity when the old one was constructed on quicksand? And most troubling of all, if her parents could hide such darkness behind their perfect smiles, what else might be lurking inside her own DNA, waiting to emerge? With her backpack slung over one shoulder, Lily followed Ms. Bennett down the stairs and out the front door. Past the neighbors who gathered in clumps on the sidewalk, their expressions a mix of horror and morbid fascination. Past the news vans that had already begun to arrive, reporters speaking urgently into cameras about the shocking discovery in this quiet suburban neighborhood. As Ms. Bennett helped her into a nondescript government car, Lily caught one last glimpse of Rex, the German shepherd who had changed everything. He sat alertly beside his handler, watching the activity around the house with calm, professional detachment. Their eyes met briefly, and Lily felt an unexpected connection with the animal who had unearthed both truth and tragedy with equal precision. In that moment, she made a silent promise to herself. Someday, when she was old enough, she would find a way to make sense of this day. She would uncover the truth about her parents, about Megan Winters, about herself. And maybe, just maybe, she would work with dogs like Rex, trained to find what others tried to hide, because some secrets should never stay buried. 3 months had passed since that fateful Saturday, when Rex uncovered the truth beneath the Richardson family's perfect lawn. Autumn had arrived, painting the suburban landscape in fiery hues that reminded Lily too much of police lights and crime scene tape. She sat on the edge of her new bed in her 3rd foster home, staring out the window at unfamiliar trees and houses. "Lily, dinner's ready," called Mrs. Winters, her voice gentle but cautious, as if speaking to a wounded animal that might bolt at any moment. The irony wasn't lost on Lily, that she now lived with Megan Winters' parents. The arrangement had been controversial. The social workers had initially opposed it, but the Winters had been persistent. "We understand her in a way no one else can," they'd argued. And strangely enough, they were right. "Coming," Lily replied, though she made no immediate move to stand. Her room, technically the guest room, though everyone pretended it was hers now, was painted a soft blue. No trace remained of its previous occupant, Megan's older sister, who had left for college 2 years ago and rarely came home. Lily had been told she could decorate it however she wanted, but she'd made no effort to personalize the space. Permanence felt like a trap. On her nightstand sat the only personal item she'd allowed herself to display: a photograph of her parents, her real parents, from before Thomas and Eleanor Richardson, before the house with the perfect lawn, before the secrets and the lies. The photos showed a laughing couple holding a toddler Lily between them at a beach somewhere. Their names had been Daniel and Sarah Collins. The media had uncovered the truth within days of her parents' arrest. The Richardsons had never existed. Daniel and Sarah Collins had disappeared from Denver 5 years ago, shortly after the disappearance of 12-year-old Megan Winters, who had been visiting relatives in Colorado. Their house had burned down in what investigators had initially ruled an accident. 3 bodies had been found in the ruins, presumed to be the Collins family. But DNA testing had eventually revealed those remains belonged to a homeless man and woman, along with their child. People no one had reported missing. People whose disappearance had gone unnoticed until they became pawns in someone else's escape plan. Lily had learned these details in fragments. Overheard conversations, newspaper headlines glimpsed before foster parents could hide them. And finally, in carefully structured therapy sessions designed to help her process the trauma. As if processing were possible. She made her way downstairs to the dining room, where Mr. and Mrs. Winters waited with forced smiles and a casserole that smelled better than Lily deserved. This was their routine now. These awkward family dinners where no one mentioned the reason they had all been brought together. "I made your favorite," Mrs. Winters said, gesturing to the mac and cheese casserole, with the extra breadcrumbs on top. Lily nodded her thanks. It wasn't actually her favorite. Her mother's lasagna had been her favorite. But she'd mentioned liking mac and cheese once, and Mrs. Winters had latched onto this small piece of normalcy with desperate enthusiasm. "How was school today?" Mr. Winters asked, serving himself a modest portion. He'd lost weight since Lily had moved in, the grief etched into the hollows of his cheeks despite his efforts to appear strong. "Fine," Lily replied, the standard answer that revealed nothing and satisfied everyone. The truth was more complicated. School was a minefield. Everyone knew who she was, the daughter of the Richardsons, the monsters who had kidnapped and murdered Megan Winters and at least 2 other children, according to the ongoing investigation. Some students avoided her like she carried something contagious. Others stared with morbid fascination. A few tried too hard to be nice, their pity more painful than outright rejection. "Mrs. Abernathy said you did really well on your science project," Mrs. Winters prompted, trying to extend the conversation. "Yeah, it was easy," Lily mumbled, pushing the pasta around her plate. The project had been about DNA and heredity. The irony had not escaped her classmates, who whispered behind their hands when she presented her work. The meal continued in strained silence, broken only by the clink of silverware and occasional forced comments about the weather or neighborhood news. This was their dance. The Winters trying to build something meaningful from unimaginable tragedy, and Lily unable to fully participate, trapped between gratitude and guilt. After dinner, Lily helped clear the table. One of the house rules she followed meticulously, afraid that a single misstep might reveal she was more like her parents than anyone wanted to believe. "There's chocolate ice cream for dessert," Mrs. Winters offered hopefully. "No, thank you," Lily replied. "I have homework." It was an excuse, but a believable one. She retreated to her room, closing the door softly behind her. From beneath her mattress, she withdrew a worn spiral notebook, her investigation journal. The trial was still months away, but Lily had been conducting her own research, trying to understand how the people who had loved her, who had taught her to ride a bike and kissed her scraped knees, could have committed such horrific acts. More importantly, she needed to know if there had been signs she should have recognized, clues that might have saved Megan and the others. She opened to a fresh page and wrote the date at the top, then began to record the day's discoveries. There weren't many. Her parents remained in custody, refusing to speak even to their own attorneys, according to the news reports. The investigation had expanded to include several other missing children cases across 3 states. And then there was the newest development. The one Lily had overheard when Dr. Freeman, her therapist, had been speaking with the Winters after her session yesterday. Something about genetic testing and predisposition and nature versus nurture. They were testing her, looking for some biological marker that might indicate whether she carried the same darkness as her parents, the same capacity for violence and deception. Lily closed the notebook and returned it to its hiding place. She moved to the window and pressed her forehead against the cool glass, watching as lights came on in neighboring houses. Normal families settling in for the evening, parents helping with homework, siblings arguing over the remote control, lives untouched by the kind of horror that had defined hers. Her breath created a small circle of fog on the window. Within it, she traced 3 letters. Why? It was the question that haunted her days and terrorized her nights. Why had her parents done these terrible things? Why had they chosen this town, so close to where one of their victims had lived? Why had they seemed so normal, so loving to her, while harboring such darkness? And the question she couldn't bring herself to write, even in the privacy of her journal. Why hadn't they killed her too? A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. Mrs. Winters opened the door just enough to peek inside. "I thought you might want some hot chocolate," she said, holding out a steaming mug topped with mini marshmallows. "It's getting chilly tonight." Lily accepted the mug, the warmth seeping into her cold fingers. "Thank you." Mrs. Winters lingered in the doorway, clearly wanting to say more. Finally, she took a deep breath. "The detective called today. They want to schedule another interview with you." Lily's stomach clenched. I've told them everything I know. I know, sweetie. And I told them that. But they think you might remember something new. Something that could help with the other cases. The other cases. The other families destroyed by her parents' actions. The other bodies they still hadn't found. When? Lily asked, her voice small. Next week. Mr. Winters and I will be with you the whole time, and Dr. Freeman will be there too. She hesitated. There's something else. Your parents' preliminary hearing is scheduled for next month. The prosecutor thinks you might need to testify. The hot chocolate suddenly tasted like ash in Lily's mouth. The thought of seeing her parents again, of looking into the faces that had smiled at her across the breakfast table every morning, sent a wave of nausea through her. Do I have to? Mrs. Winters moved into the room and sat beside Lily on the bed, careful to maintain a respectful distance. No one can force you, but it might help bring closure. For everyone. Closure, as if such a thing existed. I'll think about it, Lily said, knowing it was the answer Mrs. Winters hoped for. After Mrs. Winters left, Lily returned to the window. Night had fallen completely now, and she could see her reflection in the glass. Dark hair, solemn eyes, a face that sometimes reminded her too much of her father. In the distance, sirens wailed, reminding her that the world was full of other tragedies. Other secrets being uncovered, other lives being upended. For a brief moment, she wondered about Rex, the German shepherd who had changed everything. Was he out there right now, nose to the ground, uncovering someone else's buried truth? Lily pressed her palm against the cold window, as if reaching for something just beyond her grasp. Tomorrow would bring another day of pretending to be normal, of therapy, sessions and sympathetic looks, of questions without answers. But tonight, in the quiet of her borrowed room, she allowed herself to remember being loved by monsters. And in the darkest corner of her heart, she wondered if loving them back made her a monster too. The courthouse loomed before Lily like something from a nightmare. All imposing columns and cold stone steps leading to massive wooden doors. November rain fell in a steady drizzle, matching her mood as she clutched Mrs. Winters' hand on one side and her therapist, Dr. Freeman's, on the other. Remember what we practiced? Dr. Freeman said quietly. You don't have to look at them if you don't want to. You can look at me or the prosecutor. Lily nodded mechanically, though she knew it was a lie. Of course she would look at them. How could she not? Despite everything, they were still her parents. The people who had taught her to read, who had cheered at her soccer games, who had created an entire false life that had felt so utterly real. News vans lined the street, and reporters huddled under umbrellas, their hungry eyes scanning for any glimpse of the key players in what the media had dubbed the Rose Garden killings. When they spotted Lily, the cameras swung in her direction like predators sighting prey. Keep your head down, Mr. Winters instructed, positioning himself to block their view as security personnel rushed to clear a path. Don't say anything. Inside, the courthouse bustled with activity. Lawyers in dark suits hurried past, carrying briefcases and grim expressions. Police officers stood at strategic points, their faces impassive but watchful. Lily felt their eyes on her. The child of monsters, an object of both pity and suspicion. They were escorted to a small waiting room where Lily's victim advocate, a kind-faced woman named Ms. Patel, waited with a reassuring smile. How are you holding up, Lily? She asked, offering a small box of juice that made Lily feel like a much younger child. I'm okay, Lily replied automatically. The response she'd learned would satisfy adults without inviting further questions. "The prosecutor wants to go over a few things before we go in," Ms. Patel explained to the Winters, "just to make sure we're all prepared." Prepared. As if anyone could be prepared for this. The prosecutor, Ms. Alvarez, arrived moments later. She was exactly as Lily remembered from their previous meetings, brisk, efficient, with kind eyes that contrasted with her no-nonsense demeanor. "Lily," she acknowledged with a nod, "thank you for being here. I know this isn't easy." Understatement of the century. "I want to remind you that this is just the preliminary hearing," Ms. Alvarez continued. "The judge will determine if there's enough evidence to proceed to trial. You'll give your testimony, answer a few questions, and that's it for today." "Will they?" Lily hesitated, her voice barely audible. "Will they say anything to me?" Ms. Alvarez exchanged glances with Dr. Freeman before answering. "They have the right to confer with their attorneys, but they won't be allowed to address you directly. There will be security officers in the courtroom, and they'll be restrained." Restrained. The word conjured images of her father, who had taught her to ride a bike without training wheels, in handcuffs. Her mother, who had braided her hair every morning before school, shackled like a dangerous animal. "It's time," announced a court officer from the doorway. The courtroom was smaller than Lily had imagined, though it felt cavernous as they entered. Wooden benches lined both sides of a center aisle, most already filled with journalists, law enforcement officials, and curious members of the public who had managed to secure seats for the most sensational case in the county's history. Lily kept her eyes fixed on the back of Ms. Alvarez's navy blue suit as they made their way to the front. She could feel the weight of dozens of stares, hear the hushed whispers that followed her progress. That's her, the daughter. Poor thing has no idea what they did. Wonder if she's messed up too? Apple doesn't fall far. The last comment, though barely audible, sent a chill through Lily. It echoed her own darkest fear, that whatever had twisted her parents into killers might lie dormant within her too, waiting to emerge. They took their seats in the front row. Lily positioned between Mrs. Winters and Dr. Freeman. Mr. Winters sat on his wife's other side, his jaw clenched so tight that Lily could see a muscle twitching beneath his skin. "All rise." The command startled Lily from her thoughts. She stood with the others as the judge entered, a stern-looking woman with silver hair and reading glasses perched on the end of her nose. And then a side door opened, and her parents were let in. Despite her determination to remain stoic, Lily gasped. They were almost unrecognizable. Her father, once robust and confident, had shrunk inside his orange jumpsuit, his shoulders hunched, his formerly neatly trimmed beard now unkempt. Her mother's carefully highlighted hair had grown out, showing several inches of natural gray at the roots, and her face, once expertly made up, was pale and drawn. They shuffled to the defense table in shackles, the chains around their ankles making a soft clinking sound that echoed in the sudden silence of the courtroom. Neither looked up. Not at the judge, not at the prosecutor, and not at their daughter sitting just feet away. The proceedings began with formal introductions and legal jargon that washed over Lily in an incomprehensible wave. She caught phrases like multiple counts of first-degree murder and kidnapping with special circumstances and evidence recovered from the residence. Ms. Alvarez presented a methodical overview of the case, her voice steady as she described how Rex, the cadaver dog, had alerted to human remains in the Richardsons' backyard, how excavation had revealed not only Megan, Winter's remains, but evidence linking to 2 other missing children, how search warrants executed on the property had uncovered trophies from the victims: a bracelet, a hair ribbon, a small backpack. hidden in a locked compartment in the basement. Throughout this recitation of horrors, Lily stared at her parents, willing them to look at her, to offer some explanation, some sign that the people who had loved her were still in there somewhere. But they remained motionless, eyes downcast, as if carved from stone. Finally, it was time for Lily's testimony. As she made her way to the witness stand, her legs felt disconnected from her body, moving of their own accord. She was vaguely aware of Mrs. Winters squeezing her hand as she passed, of Dr. Freeman's encouraging nod. The oath was administered, and Lily promised to tell the truth. Though what truth could she possibly offer when everything she had believed about her life had been a lie? Ms. Alvarez approached, her expression softening slightly. "Lily, can you tell the court your full name and age, please?" "Lily Collins Richardson," she replied, her voice stronger than she expected. "I'm 10 years old." "And the defendants, Thomas and Eleanor Richardson, they are your parents, correct?" "Yes." The word felt strange in her mouth. Parents. What did that even mean now? "Lily, I'm going to ask you some questions about your life with the defendants and about the day the police came to your house. If you need a break at any time, just let me know, okay?" Lily nodded, her eyes drawn inexorably to her parents. For the first time since entering the courtroom, her mother looked up, meeting Lily's gaze. The connection lasted only seconds, but in her mother's eyes, Lily saw something unexpected. Not remorse or shame, but a fierce, protective love that made no sense alongside the crimes she had committed. "Lily," Ms. Alvarez prompted gently, "can you tell us about the day the police came to your neighborhood with a dog named Rex?" And so Lily began her story, recounting how her parents had reacted to the police presence, their insistence that she stay inside, her own curiosity about the German shepherd that had led her to disobey. She described Rex digging in the rose garden, uncovering what she now knew were human remains. As she spoke, the courtroom faded away, and she was back in that moment. The sun warm on her shoulders, the scent of her mother's roses, the excitement of befriending a police dog, and then the horror of what came after. "Did your parents ever mention Megan Winters to you?" Ms. Alvarez asked. "No, never." "Did they ever mention their life in Denver? Or that they had changed their names from Daniel and Sarah Collins?" "No. They told me we moved for my dad's job, that it was a fresh start." "Was there anything unusual about your home life? Anything that, looking back now, seems suspicious or concerning?" Lily hesitated, considering the question. She thought about the locked room in the basement that she'd been told was for storage. The late-night phone calls. The way her father sometimes disappeared for days on business trips that he never discussed afterward. But she also thought about movie nights with popcorn and blanket forts, birthday parties with homemade cakes, Christmas mornings and bedtime stories and inside jokes that had been just for the three of them. "They were just my parents," she finally said, her voice cracking. "They made me lunch for school. They helped with my homework. She swallowed hard. They seemed normal." A murmur rippled through the courtroom. Ms. Alvarez waited for it to subside before continuing. "Lily, this is a difficult question, but it's important. Did you ever see your parents harm anyone? Or did they ever harm you?" "No," Lily answered firmly. "They never hurt me. They were..." The words caught in her throat. "They were good to me." From the defense table came a sound, a stifled sob. Her mother had covered her mouth with her shackled hands, tears streaming down her face. Beside her, her father remained rigid, but his eyes were now fixed on Lily with an intensity that made her shiver. The defense attorneys declined to cross-examine her, a mercy Lily hadn't expected. As she stepped down from the witness stand, she felt hollowed out, as if she'd left something vital behind. The rest of the hearing passed in a blur. Expert witnesses testified about forensic evidence. Detectives described the investigation. Photos were shown to the judge but mercifully screened from the gallery's view. Through it all, Lily sat motionless, aware of Mrs. Winters's arm around her shoulders, but unable to take comfort from it. Her focus remained on her parents, searching for some sign, some explanation, some reconciliation between the loving family she remembered and the monsters revealed in testimony. When the judge finally spoke, her voice cut through Lily's fog. Based on the evidence presented, I find probable cause to bind the defendants over for trial on all counts. Bail is denied. The defendants will remain in custody. A sharp rap of the gavel, and it was over, at least for today. As her parents were led away, her father finally turned toward her. His lips moved, forming words meant only for her. 3 simple words that would haunt her dreams for years to come. Still your dad. The courtroom erupted into activity. Journalists rushing for the exits, attorneys gathering papers, court officers directing traffic. In the chaos, Lily felt herself being guided toward a side door, away from the media frenzy. "You did great," Dr. Freeman assured her, though Lily couldn't remember what great was supposed to look like in this situation. In the hallway, sheltered from prying eyes, Mrs. Winters knelt before her. "It's over now. We can go home." But it wasn't over. It was only beginning. And home was a concept that no longer held meaning. As they made their way toward the private exit where a car waited to whisk them away from the courthouse, Lily caught sight of a familiar figure standing with a group of officers. A German shepherd with intelligent eyes and an alert posture. Rex, the dog who had changed everything. Their eyes met briefly, and Lily felt an unexpected connection with the animal who had unearthed both truth and tragedy with equal precision. In that moment, a seed of an idea took root in her mind. A purpose, a direction, a possible future rising from the ashes of her past. If her life had been destroyed by secrets buried in the earth, perhaps she could rebuild it by bringing truth to light. Not as a victim forever defined by her parents' crimes, but as someone who helped uncover hidden truths, who gave voice to those who could no longer speak for themselves. "Lily?" Mrs. Winters called, holding the door open. "Are you coming?" With one last look at Rex, Lily turned away from the courthouse and stepped into the rain. Not toward closure, which she now understood was an illusion, but toward whatever came next in a life that would forever be divided into before and after. The truth, like the remains her parents had tried to hide, had finally emerged from darkness into light. And while Lily couldn't change the past, she could choose how its shadows would shape her future. Not as the daughter of monsters, but as her own person, finding her way forward, one step at a time. 7 years passed. At 17, Lily stood tall on her graduation day, honor cords draped over her shoulders. Gold for academics, blue for peer counseling, and a special black and white cord from the K-9 training center where she volunteered. "You look beautiful," Mrs. Winters said, eyes bright with tears. "Your speech will be amazing." Valedictorian? Another achievement that felt both significant and hollow. The Winters had become family without replacing her lost one. They had given her space to heal while providing stability. At the ceremony, Lily approached the podium and abandoned her prepared remarks. "Tradition dictates I talk about new beginnings," she began. But I want to talk about the past and how we carry it with us. She spoke honestly about her journey, how trauma shapes but doesn't define us, how resilience emerges from devastation, how community sustains us when we cannot stand alone. Each of us carries a past. The question isn't whether we can erase our histories. We cannot. The question is what we choose to build with the materials we've been given. After the ceremony, Officer Martinez handed her an acceptance letter. Full scholarship to the criminal justice program with specialization in forensic psychology. The Winters gave her a silver necklace with a paw print pendant engraved with Truth Seeker. As they prepared to leave, Lily received an email notification. "My father," she said, her voice hollow. "He's agreed to meet with me." The prison visit was scheduled for the following week, a chance for answers, not forgiveness. That night, Lily wrote in her journal, "Today I graduated. Tomorrow I face the past one more time. Not to dwell there, but to finally release its hold on my future. The truth may not set me free, but facing it might." She touched the paw print pendant. Truth Seeker. From Rex to Rex Jr. From tragedy to purpose. Her path had been unexpected, but not without meaning. While she couldn't change her beginning, she had claimed her story as her own. The next chapter was hers to write.